All right. So once again, thank you for joining us for this month's MicroAge Talks Technology webinar. My name is Maria Fiore. I'm the Director of Operations for MicroAge, and I'm joined today by a special guest presenter, James Wellborn, Product Sales Manager with our partner SureWeb. So welcome, James.
Thank you so much for having me, Maria. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Excellent. So this past November, when we first presented Microsoft 365 Copilot with Alex, James's colleague, we could only give you an overview and a promise of the changes that Copilot would bring to organizations and their employees. The product was only available to larger enterprises, and there was a wait list on top of that. So everything changed as of January of this year, when Microsoft announced that the product was now available to organizations of all sizes. Today, we can tell you a little bit more about the product, but also talk about how to prepare for Copilot. The product is not, you need a strategy in order to be able to implement Copilot. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we begin, here are a few housekeeping notes. So attendees are muted to reduce any background noise, as I'm sure you've all noticed already. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation by using the questions panel of the webinar tool. We did this webinar in French this morning, and there were a lot of questions. So, and James was very excited about that. So please ask your questions. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be sent out in the next several hours for your review or to share with people you think would benefit from listening in. In the same email, you will also receive a link to download the free ebook we are making available to you today. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, you can download it in the handout section of the webinar tool. So if you go there, you can just download a copy of the presentation. Lastly, at the end of the webinar, you will receive a short 3-question survey to gather your feedback. Your feedback is really important to us, and it helps us improve future webinars. So if you can take a moment to provide your feedback, we'd really appreciate it. So just before handing things over to James, I'm going to take a minute to give you a brief overview of who we are, for those of you who may not know us. So MicroAge is a Canadian technology service provider with 39 locations across Canada. We've been providing IT services and solutions to our clients since 1981. The key for us is understanding your organization. Yeah, we want to understand your operations, your clients, your people, your goals, your challenges, your opportunities. Understanding all these things helps us recommend and provide the IT services and solutions that are right for you. In a nutshell, that's who MicroAge is. So with that, James, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria, and to the whole MicroAge team for having me here today. I'll just double down on this side here really quick in terms of the partnership. So similarly, we support MicroAge with some of the Microsoft stuff in particular. But again, that understanding of your business, understanding of, as Maria put it perfectly there, your challenges, your opportunities. This is where success is made. There's a notion of that through the presentation today. Again, it is the long-term what's next or what should you do. These are all things our colleagues at MicroAge will be able to help you address to make sure that, again, to Maria's point, your Copilot deployment is a successful one. So we'll go through that and a little bit more the next hour or so here. So here's what we have on the docket. So we're looking at what is Copilot. We did have some news back in November, and now we have more since it's real and it's here and it's available. There's a lot of excitement, understandably. There's also one of our recommendations, let's say, would be to proceed with a slight air of caution, as the power within is really incredible, and in some circumstances it may not be ideal to deploy just out of the gates like that. So we'll take a look at that Copilot a little bit, the making it real is a little bit more about some use cases just to inspire and kind of spark that in you. The licensing we'll touch on super quickly, and then the how to prepare, again, to Maria's point, is something we really want to just get some light on. I share some examples as to why, and then to close out, we're going to be looking at very accessible tools and steps, how you can start to leverage AI even today, even without getting into the M365 Copilot product itself.
It's
Last
like
thing I'll
as
say,
you're getting ready for the full implementation, you can still take advantage, right?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll take a look at all of that. I'll double down on Maria's earlier mention as well in terms of questions. Really, don't be shy. We did run over on the last one. We did say, I think it was 10 or 15 minutes extra just doing Q&A. And like Maria said there, I love that. Firstly, my colleagues, the microwave team as well there, it gives the chance to really better understand. AI is new from a Microsoft perspective. It's new for us as well, right? So it's only been out for 2 months. We had access maybe to some of us to play with it a little bit earlier, but now we're seeing all the different use cases that come out. So share, and then it's just going to help us to better equip you and to make sure your Copilot deployments are really successful. So I'll just zoom out a little bit here. We'll take a step back and start really kind of at the core, right? So what is Copilot for 365 or Microsoft 365 Copilot? It is a collection of things, if I were to say. So this side gives a high level view here. So the idea that a large language model, which is an AI, conversational AI tool, which will allow AI to interpret your language, so natural language, so just the way that I'm speaking to you today, so nothing too technical and perfect structures and none of that. So you can really speak to it just in your language, and it does support a bunch of different languages. But the idea here would really be, we have a laser pointer out, that once you're using Copilot for 365, you would ask it or request or make a prompt. So this is going to be, again, it could be a request, it might be a demand, so to speak, it might be a question, and just a few of the thousands of examples out there. And then what it's going to do is that prompt is going to go to the large language model to get understood, to get some context. And then it's going to go and try and answer your question, whether based on the graph or online. But essentially for data that's stored in your Microsoft apps, whether that be OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, you name it, there's a lot of access in there. But again, then it's going to take that data that you requested, go back to the large language model, and then reply to you in kind. So if you ask a more casual question, you'll get a more, let's say, a more casual response, but the AI will kind of match your tone to a certain extent. The real point here, not to go on and on, the real point is to show to what extent it's integrated with your app. So all the data that's on the Microsoft Cloud is what my Copilot will be able to return, or Copilot for 365. It'll also have access to the web as well. So we'll pull articles, websites, blogs, etc., based on the request that you made. So we'll provide you both where applicable. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the use cases here. But again, so through all of the Microsoft apps, and I think this is really where it becomes super interesting, or where kind of the light bulbs start to go off here, is that we all, interact, let's say, with our teams, or hopefully, I hope some of you get to enjoy this tool, Microsoft Teams or PowerPoints or Excel, depending on your role. These are all great tools. Well, what if we could inject some AI? What if we could facilitate or expedite some of the tasks that we have as part of our respective day-to-days? And again, having that built into tools that are very familiar to many of us, well, it's the cherry on top. So there are definitely AI models out there, like a ChatGPT as an example, where it's a pretty good tool. It'll help you through a variety of scenarios, but having that data secure and having it accessible in the apps you actually use, and again, that security notion is so important. Well, that's kind of the difference maker here, and this is a big push for Microsoft going forward. The AI is again a really big focus. You're going to see this appear in Power BI at a certain point. It's not even on the slide, is how quick they're shooting these out here, but there's a security Copilot, Power BI, OneDrive Copilots, and on and on. So again, it will be baked into the tools that many of us get to use every day. We did want to start with a couple of examples, again, just to kind of inspire a little bit more and share some ideas as to how, what this really means, right? So it's great, AI, James, like, yeah, go on. And AI, again, is great, and when you see it here in this context, right? So if we look at Copilot, again, just what we see on the screen here, you do have the ability to summarize email threads. So this is probably the use and Outlook that I leverage the most. If you're like me and you have the absolute joy of being looped into some email threads that are maybe 30, 40 answer replies all the way back to November, well, then you get thrown into this thread, or even, you're off for a week or two and maybe it's not quite as fresh. Well, you can jump into that thread and ask Copilot to summarize. It'll do so generally well within 30 seconds, and it'll actually give you the highlights. It won't give you every thread and who said what in each response, but high level, hey, here's what Maria had said last, here's what James or Alex, etc. And maybe even some of the pain points that are there, some of the challenges that are being faced. But again, all of this at a click of a button, so you don't have to necessarily scroll through or do like I used to do just 6 months ago and scroll right down to the bottom of the thread and, okay, what happened here? To try and make sense of the situation. So that's an amazing tool. Quite personally, it definitely saves me a chunk of time in a day. And then on the outbound as well. So then if I were to ask Copilot to summarize this entire thread, again, couple seconds, I'll have that right in front of me. And then if I go to reply, well, Copilot will actually even suggest replies for me. I have one or two canned responses contextually, right? So based on the entirety of the thread, it'll suggest some answers for me. If not, I can just tell it if I don't necessarily agree with or want to pursue any of the prompts that it gave me or some of the ideas it gave me otherwise said. Well, then I can say, hey, tell Maria thanks, and I'd love to partake. And then Copilot will say, hi Maria, really appreciate the invite, and it might doll it up and make it a little maybe more professional, maybe more casual. But I can actually give Copilot instructions as to how to reply. And again, I could just say, hey, tell Maria thanks. And it might write out a whole text if I say I want it to be a long reply and a more formal tone. Well, then it really might spit out a page or half a page there, Maria. I won't make you read too much here, but it'll give the response the way that I would want that response to be. So.
And actually, we have a question that came in from Clayton, and he's asking, is it for Copilot Outlook only, or will it work with Gmail as well?
So Copilot here is strictly for Microsoft 365. So strictly for this one. You can leverage, and we'll touch on a little bit later, there is a product called Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft went crazy with their naming. There's Microsoft for 365 will be the crux of the topic for today. But there's a Copilot that's also available. Oops, sorry, here. There's a Copilot that's also available. And there you can actually, it's a web search tool, a web chat tool. Well, there you can maybe take the email you received from your Gmail account, let's say, and then paste it into Copilot there, and then ask it to provide a response in a certain tone, given a certain audience, a certain length. Maybe you'll want it to rhyme because you're feeling festive, but all that's going to be available through the online tool.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just another step further here while we're on the topic of kind of outside sources, there is such a thing called Copilot Studio. So this will actually give you the ability to create your own Copilot, and then you can point to whatever data sources you're looking at there. So most likely through Copilot Studio, you'll be able to actually have that live through your Gmail. Alternatively, I do believe Google does have their own AI solution as well, in the commercial sense generally.
We've got another question. So James, we're going to have to speed things up, but Daisy has an interesting question. She says, let's say that I am looking for certain PDF attachment on an email in Outlook. Can Copilot read attachments as well and find information that is contained in the PDF documents?
Absolutely, and that's a really fun one. So I'll do that frequently, and we'll talk a little bit about Microsoft 365 Chat a little bit in a few minutes here. But I'll use that feature. So it's built into Microsoft Teams, or I can access it on the web. And I can say, hey, find me that email from Maria. It had an attachment, and like that simple, and it'll find all emails from Maria that have attachments. Or I can say, hey, help me find some collateral around the Copilot webinar we're working on. and it'll actually go and find, sorry, it'll find that same email and provide the attachment there as well. So I can pop into the email, or I'll have the attachment readily available. But yes, it can absolutely scan the files received or sent.
Can it read them? Like if you're looking for specific information within that document, can it read it?
Yeah, so I can say, hey, help me find an email where we talk about Copilot, Teams Premium, and Outlook between Maria and myself. And it'll go back and it'll say, oh, well, there is this document here that does include these kind of keywords, or this seems to be the document, and yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Super duper cool is the way there, but yeah, absolutely, anytime, and keep them coming. Again, we love these. In Teams, so another amazing part of what Copilot can do, again, from a day-to-day, I think this is really the difference maker, is you can leverage these AI tools that are outside of your work environment, outside of your work tools. Again, the security is kind of, it's a risk, presumably you or your team will accept, but keeping this securely in the service boundaries within Microsoft, and again, the tools that we use, right? So in Microsoft Teams, I'll leverage this quite frequently, as will much of my team. We will ask questions to Copilot during a meeting. So it might be, hey, does everyone understand this? Did I articulate that properly? Here's what I want to say. Help me to find a way to segue this into this conversation. Who is James talking too much is often something you might see if you ever get a chance to chat with me. But you'll be able to pull some of these even more emotional cues right from Copilot. So again, having that AI, having essentially a second set of eyes and a second brain with you at all times, freeing you up to focus more on the task at hand and less on the note-taking, less on the wondering, oh, shucks, I missed that one. What more could I ask? What more should I have said there? Well, you can get that coaching in real time. And even ensure that maybe the other party understood you as well. So incredibly powerful tool. I gave a couple of examples there. We'll take a look at a couple more. We won't go too in depth because I will spend a full day just talking about the what ifs and just the power and the potential within this tool. But a couple of things that we're going to try to highlight here will be just the ability to communicate efficiently to keep your team informed. If you want to look at hiring as one use case, and again, there are many use cases out there. And then even from just simplifying or streamlining some of the more repetitive tasks that you do, staying informed, again, like these are all things that Copilot can help. Again, it's built in to the tools we use for work, namely Outlook, Excel, Teams, PowerPoint, OneNote, Loop, and on and on. But we'll show a couple of examples here. We do have this lovely picture of this nice lady named Megan here, who's going to tell us a little bit about everyday tasks and how she gets to go about using it. So quick stat, just because we're close to Microsoft and we love our stats, but 80% of people would be comfortable using AI to summarize meetings and action items. I don't know who those 20% are, but I absolutely agree that at least 80% of people would be comfortable using AI. Why not?
Especially since some of us spend our lives in meetings, so.
That's it. There's some roles, like my role, unfortunately enough to occupy here, it is 5 to 6 meetings on a kind of average day here, and I'll hit 12 in peak seasons. Lately with Copilot, namely, it's been some pretty active days. But again, so I can just sit here, I can just chat, and then I can even circle back after the call, or even during the call and ask Copilot, hey, maybe I was distracted and definitely not multitasking if any of my colleagues are here. But then I'd be able to ask it questions, say, hey, did I miss anything here? What did Anne-Marie say most recently? And no offense, Anne-Marie, I always listen to you. But what was the most recent comment there? What does Sam think about this? And the AI will actually infer Sam's sentiment based on responses, not necessarily on visual cues just yet, but based on what he's able to articulate. It'll say, oh, maybe Sam isn't so confident about this, or maybe Sam really loves this idea and is all in. So these are just a couple different examples, but there are thousands and thousands of use cases there. So really quickly, so if we were to follow Megan through a quick day here, so she might start off her morning, up in Teams. She'll go and be in a meeting, and she'll actually bring up the point I just made. Megan, don't steal my ideas. I stole it from Megan, but so asking some good follow-up questions. How can I be better in this meeting? Is my intonation correct? Am I speaking too fast? So some of these things, this kind of emotional quotient will actually be captured here. From there, she might jump into Excel, ask it to maybe add a column. So one of the examples I like to use here is we'll see our revenue, we'll see our costs. Hey, Copilot, and this is just in plain English, right? There's no formulas. It is, hey, Copilot, what is my profit? Or add a column for profit. Highlight where my profit margin is above 10%. Put a red highlight if my profit margin is under 3%. So these are things you can just ask. There's no Excel wizardry or formula memorizing or Googling even. Like, you can really just speak to it like you would a colleague, a very informed and all-powerful colleague, but you could just ask these questions in our native language, our native way of speaking. And then we can see Megan create a PowerPoint right from a Word document. So she didn't have to go and create something new, but she had this Word document there and then just turned it into a PowerPoint. Here too, it's well under a minute, depending on the size of the document and such there, but generally within a minute, you'll have a really good base. So it might not be the finished product. We are safe. It's not going to take all our jobs just yet, but a really good base. And then again, just a way to expedite these more manual tasks that some of us get to partake in. So really fun there. It's a tool I leverage quite frequently. M365 chat. This is the reference we made earlier there. So finding all the emails I received this month, given a specific topic, right? So it's incredibly powerful. I'll use it to say, hey, Copilot, tell me about my day. And it'll tell me all the meetings I have. It'll tell me it'll link to emails or chats that reference said meetings. So I have an idea of what to expect, what to prepare in terms of tooling. But again, it's that assistant with me at all times and understanding contextually what it is I'm trying to ask. And again, this is in the spirit of work. The Teams one, so there you go. So more around the action items that we'll see in Teams meetings. So again, really fun, right? So maybe you're like me, you multitask and you're very present. You're 95% present in all these meetings, but then there's an email that pops up and it's, for a couple of seconds, you might drift away. Well, great, like Copilot can help you catch up really rapidly. Honestly, this is done in a couple of seconds. And then finally, on the Microsoft Word front, so here again, it's just saying, create an executive summary. And when interacting with the AI tools, giving as much context as possible. So write 3 paragraphs and include why these points are important to our company. And Copilot understands the context of your work, of your day-to-day. It'll know that it's ShareWeb when I ask it. It'll know that it's for microwave when Maria were to ask. Again, it'll give that executive summary, and it's going to take under a minute for most of these things, or well under a minute for most of these. And again, this is a very short list of 6 individual things we can do. There are actually thousands and thousands, and AI is so new that we don't even know what we don't know yet. So there's more use cases every day that smarter people than I are coming up with, and I just get to tire them out to the masses. But again, once you start using the tool, you see to what extent it can influence your day. It becomes almost a no-brainer, quite honestly. If we look at the hiring, again, so there's a couple of use cases here, but the hiring, right? And 75% of people, or 3 and 4, would be comfortable using AI for administrative tasks. Again, who is that 1 in 4 people? I'm not quite sure, but why not? If you can offload, if you can streamline, if you can expedite, if you could be more efficient, you could be more creative, you could be more knowledgeable even. So even if I think in Excel, I would categorize myself as a very novice Excel user. VLOOKUPs are something I'm finally getting the hang of all this time later. But I can instantly upskill and up-level my acquired knowledge within Excel Again, not by studying or watching guides and having a how-to on the screen next to me, but really just saying, hey, Copilot, make this a bar graph. Hey, Copilot, help me to visualize this in a way that highlights my top performers, in a way that shows me outliers. Like these are all things you can just ask it. And again, no formal, masters required here. It is really something we just speak to. And again, the possibilities are there. So I won't go through all of these. You will get a copy of the deck right after. But do dream a little is what I try to tell people here, is just imagine what it could be. And there too, our friends at Microwage, they're well versed here. For those of you even who maybe want to see a little bit more, brainstorm further, like we are kind of another layer of support. Us and Microsoft, again, very, very close here. So we're another layer of support to you, and again, to our amazing partners in the Microwave team here. Stream a little bit as Omar here has found some really good use for some of this stuff. All right, and then again, just I won't go too deep down any rabbit holes here, but 68% of people say they don't have enough uninterrupted focus time during the work day. I am one of those 70% here. Absolutely. What if, right? So this is just like some things we can do. There are tools built in within Microsoft, so namely Viva here, that can actually help to schedule focus time and to help to avoid distractions. That being said, what if you can get through some of these tasks earlier? I say get through, but I'm very appreciative of the roles we get to occupy. But what if we can trim 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there? Find yourself with 10 extra hours in a month, which was the average for Microsoft's earlier launch. 10 hours it's a quarter of a week, right? Like that's a lot of extra time. It's a day and a quarter. Man, what would you do with an extra day? And I say, man, just like my way of speaking here, but just kind of what would you do with an extra day? It doesn't sound like much, but out of our 20 work days in a month here, not to say exponential, but far more productive, or have that extra, 5%.
Well, we're expected to do more with less every day. That, like you have to do more, but you have less time. So yeah, I mean, it could help, right? 10 hours is huge.
It's 10 hours, right? Like again, if you just do an extra hour for the next 2 weeks on your work day, like what would you accomplish in an hour? Just again, I won't dream too much for you all here. And again, I won't read through the entire slide, but just again, more inspiration, more ideas. And this is really where it all begins. It is, hey, what is a pain point? What could be better? And then we'll work with you and Microwave, especially their team is phenomenal from all the partners we get to deal with. They'll be able to guide you and share some insight. And to Maria's point earlier, right? They understand your business in a way that Microsoft does not, quite honestly, a way that we never could. Also, right? They're in your business. They understand your way of work, a day in your life, and what that might mean. So again, like look to them for inspiration, look to them for guidance in terms of getting this done properly, and staying secure, really importantly here. But again, it's all part of the fun that we get to have in our days in a life. And I can tell you, Maria and I, as we put this together, we leverage Copilot, not to say very heavily, but we definitely leveraged it. And I can tell you from some presentations we get to do with other partners, our own presentations, building a PowerPoint is not something you do in 10 minutes. And I'd like to think that collectively, and including kind of review meetings, maybe we're at 2 hours invested, 3 hours invested here. And Copilot was the 2-3 hour difference you might have seen in other in past lives, so to speak. So again, to each his own, but there's a value here. It's just about identifying that. Nice. So that's kind of just just wanted to plant the bug in your ear and kind of say, hey, like Copilot for 365 is the real deal. It is something that there is a value for all of us. A couple of ideas as to how it could be used, and we'll share the slides, even some additional collateral in terms of other use cases. And again, look to Microwave for inspiration additionally.
Just
Beyond that.
Just before we get into the licensing, we have a question from Dominic, who
Great.
says, when using Copilot in Teams, are you the only one who sees a response to the question or all within the meeting?
Super great question and very, very important one. It's so thankfully that it's only you who would see that response. Yes, very thankfully, because some of the questions I've asked, maybe not as intelligent as some of my colleagues might think I am. So yeah, definitely a personal response.
Excellent.
Hopefully they think I am, I guess, so I should have said.
Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. And keep the questions coming there again. It's new, so we're kind of learning on the fly. We're kind of building the car as it's driving here. But from what we do know, and some of us have had access to the license for, I guess, coming up on 6 months now. So we're slightly more familiar. I think is the only difference between myself and any of you in attendance. It is just the experience, just the practice. There is no one size fits all for Copilot. There is no this is the best thing to do. It's so relative to our day-to-days. Really quick look behind the curtain here. I'm on a team that supports modern work and Microsoft within ShareWeb. My colleague Sam and myself, we work very closely together. Sam is very technical, weirdly technical and super smart guy. And then I am more of the presentations and kind of slightly more on the business side. Our uses for Copilot are very different. We both see a great value in it. He'll leverage it for some things that I wouldn't have thought of that I might not. So in terms of researching or digging down through documents or understanding maybe some concepts or getting them explained to him in maybe more technical terms, or hey, explain this to me like my favorite movie is Dune. This is Sam. His favorite movie is Dune. Explain this concept to me by using references from the movie Dune, and it'll actually pull characters and it'll make it more relatable. So there's a million use cases, but again, to each his own is where you'll find the beauty in it. Super cool. So licensing. So here, so I'll kind of rip off the band-aid here. That price is the actual price. It is a per user per year price, so it looks worse than it is. I guess quite often we're more used to paying licenses monthly or even on an annual term with a monthly option. Given the recent launch, the very, very recent launch, we're less than 2 months since it launched here publicly. Oh, put that up here. Oh yeah, see, there you go. So since January 15th, so really just under 2 months. Given the demand, given the resourcing that AI really takes on Microsoft's side, none of this is a concern to us as a service user here. But Microsoft has to scale their compute power internally to be able to support all of us using this tool. So for the time being, they are offering it strictly on an annual paid upfront approach, which can seem daunting. It might seem like a lot. It's really just over $40 per user per month if you were to do the math here. That being said, if we take an employee, for example, who has let's say let's say a $40,000 salary, if they were to look at that as a per hour, it's about 20 bucks, give or take here. So we say, look, if that user can save just 2 hours a month, it pays for itself. And if that user saves only 2 hours a month, again, reach out to the team at Microwage. We'll help you get more out of this tool. For some use cases, it's more beneficial than others. But I think 2 hours is like very much the low end of what their productivities could be gained in an entire month. Right? If we think of 20 business days, it's a drop in the pan really compared to the value that this thing could bring.
Yeah, I think there's, other thing too to remember is, you were just saying it doesn't have to be every user in your tenant, right? It could be, you could be very strategic about where you put it in and who you give it to and all of that. So, the price is a price. We're not going to change Microsoft, like, but you could be strategic about where, which person you license this to, right? So, or which user.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's a perfect kind of lead into the next part of our discussion here. It is going to be around defining success. So, what do you expect to get out of it? Again, if you're going to roll this out, let's say to a customer service or to a sales team, To Maria's point, maybe starting with the sales manager, like let's do a viability check here. Are we going to get the returns we're hoping for? How can we use this tool? What can we do with it? How much time can we expect to save? And again, you can reverse engineer the cost and say, okay, well, given the productivity output gained or the efficiency gained or the quality gained, well, again, you start doing the math here, it's not really much of a discussion point. But again, start small. Start with the right people who could help make that case and see if it makes sense for your business. And again, that's kind of tying into the, oh, go ahead, Maria, sorry.
Sorry, no, I was going to say Daisy has a question. It says when we say per user, would that be the device or each email address account using Copilot?
Yeah, so more like each user. So I guess yeah, email address of sorts would be it, but really an Entra ID or an Azure ID user. So someone who has really their own login. With Microsoft, often most licenses you have access to applications on up to 5 devices. So it's not per device, but really per user identity.
Yeah. So because she specifies that they have they do on like mobile services, they can do office services, so they have multiple devices. So that's why she was clarifying. So I hope that clarified it for you, Daisy.
Super valid, super valid. So I do use Copilot. I have it on my mobile and my laptop. That's it, just the two. But yeah, I could definitely jump into Copilot in Teams and Outlook. If let's say I'm on the road or I'm going to, I'm with the kids somewhere, I can definitely jump into my emails and have Copilot help me to generate some responses. So,
but it's the same license that you're using on all those devices. Yeah.
So
Okay.
use Walbert's identity in terms of my Microsoft tenant, or my company's Microsoft tenant rather. But yeah, it's still one single user, and I just have Microsoft gives me access to my services on 5 devices.
Right.
And so again, this is an example I like to use here. Defining success. So if your objective is to maybe save some time in terms of your emails, to remove some of the repetitive or redundant tasks as part of your day, well, having that goal or having that finish line in mind is going to help to build that confidence, going to help you to see the real value. Again, the example I was getting to here was, if I look at the car, and we can all agree, or most of us, I'd imagine, would agree to some extent that the car is really practical in terms of getting us from point A to point B, maybe more efficient, maybe faster, what have you. But going from, I'm in Montreal, if I were to go to Vancouver by car, well, I wouldn't wish that on so many people, but it can be done. If my expectation was that I'm going to go to the moon with my car, well, my car, once I acquire it, may perhaps miss the mark for me. So I think just kind of defining where you want to go, having those expectations in place, and again, defining success can be done with your partners at MicroWage, with our partners at MicroWage as well. We can definitely help to make sense and say, here, you know what, like let's not shoot for the moon here. It's a car, not just a car. You will get from Montreal to Vancouver much faster than if you walked, that is for sure. Will it go to the moon? Well, maybe not. So let's define what that looks like. Let's see if it really makes sense for you. And again, that business partner approach that MicroWage has, and ones that we appreciate so much, it isn't just kind of, here, take this license, don't worry, it's great, bye, have a nice day. It really is, hey, like let's get the best out of this for you. Let's make sure you're leveraging as much as we can here. And again, let's extract full value. They're far from license pushers, and I may have encountered one or two throughout the years. So other steps, right? So knowing what the goal is one, where do you want to go and what are your expectations? And then on the other side of it is, well, is this safe? Like, is it safe? It's within Microsoft service boundaries, your data is all protected, but is my data safe, right? So what happens if James is at an airport and he drops his phone and loses it? What happens? Could someone just come in, ask Copilot, maybe some more sensitive data from the organization? It's going to pull everything that James can see. So that is potentially a risk to consider. So Microsoft has tools to help us address this. And many of you already have these parameters in place, or much of these in place. But some of the conditional access, making sure James can only log in from his work devices, which are now known devices in my company. Making sure I'm in the city where I generally am, if they see me logging in Senegal at 1 a.m. in the morning, I'm trying to fish for some HR documents. Well, maybe that's not a typical use for James, right? So I'm rarely on that side of the world. So my company might say, hey, let's make James prove it's James by multi-factor authentication or some other tools. But long story short, making sure the right people can access which info, when, from where, and that could be both geographically or from which device. But having that security baseline in place is absolutely a must, and this should be a must, Copilot or not.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's just the
absolutely.
right.
Basic security, right?
That's it. And it's something we've been saying for a long time, and just having MFA in place can thwart 99% of attacks. Like something as small as that might just be enough for your business, but that and more is definitely available through the
Depends.
channel.
Yeah.
And then the other side of that is the data, right? So who has access to what is one of the points on the previous slide, but should I have access to my HR team's evaluation model and everyone's scoring and what their pay raises are for my boss? As much as I'd be curious, no, that is absolutely not something I should ever have access to. So making sure data is controlled, the data that is out there, that is available, is really only for those who should have access. Again, the microWave team can help you to walk through some of these steps and identify which data and help you put in some practices to help protect. But this is a crucial step to it all. Again, that pay example is the one that I find hits home. It's the one that I was kind of like, oh my gosh, when I was first learning about this. But these are really simple things that we can put in place, like virtually no barrier, no resistance from a user standpoint, but just taking some little steps, right? Just saying, hey, this document is confidential. Like maybe that's enough for your business, right? So it doesn't have to be overly exhaustive, but having a really good starting point or having a really good understanding of how the data estate is governed is a really crucial step to ensure that only the right people get the right things. We'll use the example here internally that Copilot won't create any weaknesses or any gaps in your security posture, but it could potentially highlight them. So this is more the way to think of it. It's not anything new. There's no new risk with Copilot whatsoever. It is, if you didn't have the right policies in place, well, then it may expose existing gaps or risks that may have potentially been there.
Yeah, I think what needs to needs to be clear, I guess, is we've been talking about protecting data for years, right? And so we are used to making sure that you have your data backed up, that it needs encryption, that all these things that need to be put around data and an organization and people and all of this stuff. Here, what we're talking about is, like you said, policies and rules and things that some organizations are really good at and put all these things in place and know where their data is and what kind of data they have and what's confidential, what's nobody cares about. But a lot of the times, because we have so much data, it's just, I mean, I won't even tell you how many emails I have in my inbox. You don't necessarily know, out of the 90,000 emails, what I've got in there. I may have confidential contract information that I shared with somebody 3 years ago or 5 years ago or whenever it was. And it's just a matter of trying, identifying that and making sure that whoever has access to that should have access to that. All right, and so that is a big job. Let's not, we're not, and so that's why we're saying you need a strategy, and you also need to do a little bit of data cleanup and understanding what your data is, where it is, who has access to it, why do they have access, and should they have access to it, and people maybe have access, they don't even know, right? But if you leave it up to, we'll see what happens, it could turn around and bite you, right? So.
And that's such a good point, right? So the way that I've been sharing data, or the way that I had been sharing data rather, was that I would just go through my PowerPoint or whatever my document I was working on, and I would share it. And instead of sharing with the individual, so instead of sharing with Sam or what have you, I would just share with my organization, knowing that I'll share with Sam, and then I'll give Sam the link. And then he might share it with Alex, or he might share it with Megan or Tram or what have you. And then instead of me having to approve everybody each time because those 2 clicks are too much for me, I would just share with everybody. But again, now this data governance is in my mind more so. It's like, well, wait, I can't just share with everyone because maybe somebody not looking for my document whatsoever will ask Copilot a question that has some relevance or some connection to my data or my document, and now they'll find it. So inadvertently, like there's definitely the malicious actors out there, and someone having a bad day is it's unfortunately a risk. But the inadvertent stuff, the stuff you don't even think of, it's not on purpose, not malicious. That's really like some of the other things we really have to consider here.
Yeah.
Maybe to Maria's point here, we were saying kind of there's a lot to do when it comes to data governance. It is not an overnight switch, so I don't want to kind of set microwave up here for any type of disaster. Like this is not something they're going to turn on for you tomorrow and then that's it. There are decisions to be made. There are lots of boxes to check proverbially. So our message there is start where you are. We're going to give best practices. We're going to tell you the right way to do things securely for your business. But we also understand it's a journey, right? It's not something you're going to get to on day one. Insert Copilot here. So the bulk of the conversation to date has been around Copilot for 365. So this is the Copilot integrates with your Microsoft apps. Again, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, Loop, Power BI, OneDrive, and on and on and on. But there's also this great tool. It's not getting just enough love just yet. It is called Copilot. So this is formerly Bing Chat Enterprise, version that's available through Bing Chat. So if you open up that browser, your Edge browser, you'll most likely see that there. If it's on a workstation or work computer, you'll even see your login info with your company alias up there. And that's going to tell you that you're in Copilot on the web. And again, it's a great tool, right? So this is a little bit different, I would say, than ChatGPT in that it respects your existing access. It respects your data. So it's not going to be shared or used or you use to train the model. There's no extra eyes on it. So on ChatGPT, conversely, if you do a prompt, well, that prompt is now fed to the machine. The machine's a prompt smarter. With Microsoft, that's not the case. It really is your data that is secured. And again, just to kind of draw the nuance between the Copilot 365 versus Copilot for Work, for example, you can see the differences there. And even Bing Chat, even on a personal machine, I invite you to kind of just get started or start trying Bing Chat and leveraging AI. And again, the power within this tool is probably mind-blowing for many of you. I have some colleagues who still can't quite grasp the extent to which it's going to change our lives here. And it's new now, but it's definitely going to be something that's going to be, as we Google today without thinking, in 2 years, we're going to be AI prompting and just a second nature. So that's one tool I strongly recommend everyone to start to leverage, to play with. The second one would be Microsoft Teams Premium. So this is an add-on license. The price point is much more in the realm of what we'd expect, let's say, for Microsoft. Again, the annual pricing on Copilot for 365 is the only scary part. If there was, do the math. It is not something I think anyone will really be concerned with. Again, when you start trying it, you'll be even more convinced. But essentially, back to Teams Premium here. It is intelligent productivity that offers advanced protection and richer engagements. You can customize your lobby, your waiting room, your registration pages, and so on and so on. But for the AI topic and Copilot today, the ability to summarize meetings, to get insights from meetings. So this is available. So what we'll see in red here is the Teams Premium side. And then additionally, you can add Copilot to it, start to interact with the data. So this is kind of how it might look. So you might start off with our friend here, Amanda, who's just going to skim through some of the highlights, get a quick meeting notes, a quick meeting recap available. So again, this is AI. This is not her typing, keeping notes in the whiteboard or anything of the sort. This is really AI pulling this for us contextually from the conversation. We can then get some follow-up tasks again. So who will be responsible for what? Hey, James, reply to Maria, I guess might be one, or get back to her, and Maria kind of keep me informed. So we get the task there. We can also use the speaker search here, so we can actually see when someone spoke or who spoke when, and go back and listen to that particular part of audio and video in this case. And then when we add Copilot on top of it now, so this is a layered approach. Well, now you can start to interact with the data. So Teams Premium presents, and then Copilot is the chef's kiss on top, I guess here. It's what you're able to interact with, and hey, how was this meeting? How was the tone? How did I do? Did our points get across? Were there points of conflict? Did we disagree on topics? Create a pros and con list, as we see here. These are all things that are very, very possible and very easy to do. Again, when we layer these two tools together. So just kind of recapping on the last two notions here. I'll start recapping this one here. So if we look at Teams in itself is an amazing tool. I hope all of you get to enjoy that. Teams Premium, now we're getting into the intelligence. Within meetings, a personalized note-taking assistant that can give you insight into the conversation. And then Copilot, the ability to interact with that insight. Hey, did we hit home with that message? Did this point get across? What were the takeaways this customer might have had? And Copilot will then infer based on the conversation. So again, it's incredible. Trying really is the best advice we can give at this point in time. And again, these are low barrier to entry offers here. So Copilot, this is the web chat. It is free if you have a business standard license, business premium, E3 or E5. So free, right? Who doesn't like something free? Go and try, get familiar. You'll see. Even that tool, without integrating into your apps, is outstanding. And then if we look at Teams Premium, well, now we're really into the meetings. This is something that, like, I've Copilot in my meetings for a couple months now, and I don't know how I took notes. I don't know how I was attentive before. There are insights I never would have pulled. I did an interview recently with the candidate here, and it was, hey, did this person answer all my questions? And it was yes, 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 all the questions. This one was maybe a little bit kind of convoluted in their response, but Copilot was able to identify this, and then I gave a report to my higher up, and I just screenshotted the Copilot answer, and away we go, right? So it's just the use cases are infinite. Asking, hey, what else should I ask this candidate? Golden, right? These are things like I might not know or I might not think of in the moment. Maybe you're just engaged in that conversation. All these little extras really are available. So a second brain and eyes and ears with you at all times. Yeah, and it's again, some of the value here. You'll get the slides so you can read through all the rest. But that was the main fun stuff. And now we get into some questions, which is always my favorite part.
Yeah, and I think the last part, where we say start where you are is, again, while your organization is, cleaning up their data or making sure that they have the right policies, the right rules, and the, governance and the framework and all of that stuff, well, there are still things that can help you in your daily lives, right? That you can do today if you wanted to. And I think that's because we're all pretty much convinced. Anybody who's done a little bit of chat GPT or has done, the what is it called? Bing. What are they calling it now? I keep forgetting whatever it is that they use with Edge. The one on, like it does have power, and it saves you some time, and it gives you some, creative ideas sometimes, right? You can't say something, you're looking for words or whatever. It's helpful. So, while that's happening, you could still use some of the power that's available. Having said that, we do have an ebook that we are making available, and I'm going to put the link on the chat. So if you want to go download it immediately, you can. Otherwise, you will get the link later on when we send the recording of the webinar. So I encourage you to go and get that. And then I guess we're going to go to questions. Are there any questions that anybody wants to ask? We have a few minutes. So if you have any questions that you thought about, something that might not have been clear, one of the questions we got this morning is, do you need to be on the cloud? And do so I'm going to let you answer that. You'd answer it better than I can, but yeah, you need the data needs to be in Microsoft 365, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really good point. It's something that often can go overlooked. And again, that expectations, right, is what do you think will happen here? It's not going to remove 40 hours of work from your day or from your week, thank God. It will just simplify. It'll save you 10 minutes here, an hour there. That's really, I'd say, the benefits. More to your question, though, it is, in fact, the data that's accessible in the Microsoft cloud. So in your commercial Microsoft cloud, if you have a personal account and your personal emails, well, then you can use the consumer product. But otherwise, for in the context of work, then it should be on OneDrive and SharePoint and an email and a Teams chat, Excel, Power BI, and on, or OneNote even, to be able to interact with it. So yeah, so data should be to the cloud. So if you have on-prem servers or on-prem SharePoint libraries, like these are great. There are tools that can help to create a Copilot for that. So Copilot Studio, namely, a little bit more technically involved, but otherwise for the regular business user here, Copilot for 365 will see everything that's in your business SharePoint or OneDrive.
Okay, great. So I'm not seeing any questions come in, but we have a few more minutes. So if you have any questions, please put them on the questions panel. Otherwise, again, thank you for joining us. We do encourage you to go download the ebook and reach out to your local MicroAge with any questions. Also wanted to mention that our next MicroAge Talks Technology webinar is April 11th. We will be providing a little bit of an overview of the cybersecurity trends that are going on right now. Plus, we're going to be doing a little bit of a test for participants to figure out, what the cyber security knowledge is. So look for the invite shortly. And then, yeah, James, thank you very much for today. It's really appreciated. It's some good information, and we're hearing about Copilot everywhere. So, and people are asking questions. So, I think it was important that we gave a little bit of information to everybody. And so, thank you, and thanks to all of you for spending some time with us today. And we wish you a great rest of day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Maria, and the MicroAge team here. And folks, do reach out. There's a lot to learn here, but again, we're here to accompany you on this journey. All the best.
Thanks very much.